Dre, how are you? Good to see you, cousin. Felton Clark, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome, everybody, to the conversation. So glad you could join us tonight. Thanks, Dre. We're trying to make it happen. Minister Rhonda, good evening to you. So glad you're there tonight. Everyone that's coming on either four of these platforms or watching this on playback, thank you for joining the conversation. Bert Wilder, good evening. How are you? Welcome. So glad you're here to be a part of the conversation. Wow. Alderman Dietrich Leggett, how are you, sir? Great to see you, my brother, and welcome. I am honored that you're here tonight. God bless you. Oh, happy birthday, Ms. Bert Wilder. Blessings. Good evening, Aunt Diana. How are you and Uncle Oscar? So glad you all are there. And welcome to the conversation, everybody. It's almost 8 o'clock, so we're going to give people a few more minutes to come in. If you all do us a favor and share this on your page, someone may just see it and join us. I thank you in advance for sharing it. And again, welcome to the conversation. Sister Thelma Young, how are you? Good evening and welcome. Dr. Daisy, good morning. Excuse me, I'm thinking it's prayer time. Let me do that again. Dr. Daisy, good evening. We're used to being on here at noon. Yes, Aunt Diana, it is so good for us to be together again here virtually. Sister Dot Drayton, how are you? Hello and welcome. We are so glad you all are here tonight. This is going to bless you. Nicole, how are you? You see your city in the background? Evelyn Marshall, good evening to you. Yes, Seattle is indeed in the house. There's my cousin Francine. I hope all is well there in Douglas. Please tell Aunt Maddie I said hello. Sending love to you all. And so glad you all could join us tonight. Welcome, 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 welcome. Glad you joined us for the conversation. My wife Denise is there. Hello, love. Welcome to the conversation. Sylvia Walker, how are you? Welcome. Glad you could join us. And again, I thank all of you for sharing this on your page and sharing this information. It's going to be a great conversation. And you'll be so glad you shared this with your loved ones and your friends. Robert Cohen, how are you? We're going to wait just 2 more minutes for a couple more people to log on. And we're about to get this going. Another minute or so. I am so ready. I know you all are ready too. And so we're about to do this. So again, on my Facebook page, my wife's Facebook page, the church's Facebook, or the church's YouTube, wherever you are, we are so glad you're there. Welcome. Renee Walker, how are you? We're glad you all are there. And it is about our time to get started. I am so excited about this conversation tonight. And Tricia Perkins, welcome. And I'm so glad Sylvia Daniel invited you. Glad you enjoyed the last conversation. And listen, you are going to be blessed again. My mother is there. I got to give a shout out to my mama, y'all. Let me say hello, mama, and then we can go on with the program, okay? But listen, I am so glad you all are here. And we have had a series of conversations where we have had many discussions that are enlightening and a blessing to those of us who have tuned in. And I pray that you've been blessed if you've been here before. And tonight is going to be no different. It is going to bless you again. So let me just say to every one of you, some people type in the chat and some don't, but whether you're typing in the chat or not, we are so glad that you're there. And this night is going to bless you. I've looked forward to this conversation for so long, ever since I booked this young lady. I was excited from that moment because I knew she was going to bless us with some great information tonight. So listen, our guest tonight is none other than Dr. Crystal Moore Gossard. And she is a doctor of clinical nutrition. She's a wife, she's a mother, and she stays busy. She stays on the go. She's always dropping wisdom and knowledge to help us live. And so she's going to share with us tonight. And so without any further delay, I've been waiting on this moment. So please, I can't hear you clap your hands. I can't see you, but I want you to give a warm welcome. Would you please welcome to this conversation tonight, Dr. Crystal Moore Gossard. Dr. Crystal, how are you?
I am well. I don't think I have ever received such a warm welcome. So I appreciate you, cousin, for past the cousin, for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to everyone, to talk to the public, to just spread the second good news. The good news is the word of God, but this is also good news for all of you out there because, we have to take care of ourselves.
We have to. And so it's so important to us. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, speaking of the word of God, we had a healing revival where all week long, we had different speakers come in and just remind people from the word that God wants us healed. But we didn't speak much, very little on the health and nutrition side.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really the other side of the fact that God wants us healed. And so I
Yes.
am very excited about this conversation. And I'm so glad you are able to join us, because these people don't know. I saw the footage of you online the other day, and you were cooking and all this health food and stuff. And so yeah, you were cooking on the way that we can find you on Life Extension. So would you tell us about that? When I saw you cooking the other day, tell us about Life Extension.
Yes, well, I am an education specialist for Life Extension. It is a health and wellness, nutrition, dietary supplement research company. And I've been with the company for nearly 15 years now in different capacities. And now I work as with educating the public. I host a weekly live show known as LE Live. It's hosted on Life Extension's website. I also co-host a weekly podcast called Live Forever Ish, and it's a play on the ish that's on all the TV shows and everything. And so that is available on the different podcast streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and those different platforms. And I do webinars, and it's something that I'm passionate about. But this tonight is very special because the audience that I know that's joining in now, they are, people of God. And I always think about the idea, we're out on the battlefield. We can't be out on the battlefield out of breath and not able
Right,
to fight in the army of the Lord.
right.
If we are not well ourselves, if we are not well, then, it limits to a certain extent, of course, because there's intercessory prayer and things that people can do. But, you want to be well physically, mentally, spiritually, so that you can carry out the work of God. And so I'm just happy to be able to share the little bit I know with
Oh
all
my
of
goodness,
you out
you
there.
know, every time I've seen you, you've been dropping wisdom and knowledge. And I'm glad you said that. We have to balance, and I'm glad God has He's dropping wisdom in the church, and we can pray,
Yes.
and we got, but we have to talk about health, and we have to talk about wellness, and we have to have discussions about what we're eating and so forth. And so I'm glad that you're here tonight. I want to talk about this, and I believe that people here are interested in that as well. And I was thinking, until a certain age, not much thought, and I guess I can speak for myself. When I was younger, didn't give much thought to health and nutrition. But we've come to a time when the idea of good health is something that we're talking about, we're thinking about. And as a matter of fact, I titled this above our flyer. I was just saying that health is really wealth. Yeah. And
Yes.
so that's the thing. So I'm seeing that even young people are talking more about health and wellness. And so,
Hmm.
are you seeing that same thing from your profession in terms of the conversations increasing and people wanting more knowledge these days?
I am. And sometimes it starts with trends that you see on, different social media platforms. There's, the juicing trends, or, different types of trends from, charcoal and different things. But I think we're also seeing more of a push in with famous people, with celebrities. They are now sharing, things that they do, strategies that they take to stay healthy. So I think it's a good trend. Uh, within the past year and a half or so, of course, COVID has played a huge role. But even before COVID, you found that younger and younger people are realizing that they need to take care of themselves. The field of nutrition, when you look at different health fields, the field of nutrition is still very young compared to, the study of cardiovascular health or certain other diseases. It's not something that the conventional practitioners or conventional doctors are trained on. So it hasn't really been a topic of discussion when you go to your doctor. It's not something that traditionally you will hear about. And so now that's changing. Doctors are now starting to like either learn about the nutrition aspect because people are coming in asking questions, or they know who to now refer that patient to that can give them that nutrition guidance.
That's right, because I'm gonna tell my doctor. Well, Dr. Crystal told me, and no,
Yeah.
but yeah, but this is good. I'm glad the conversation is changing. I'm glad the narrative is changing, and
Mm-hmm.
and and it's time for us to have these conversations about health and wellness. Now, I grew up hearing this all my life that an apple a day will keep the doctors away. How much truth? How much truth is there in that old adage or saying?
Well, actually, that this has been researched because it's a saying. So obviously, there are the scientists that come around that say, is this true? And from a scientific perspective, like if you look at populations of people, and there's research where they've studied, hundreds of people, and then they group those people. Who are these people based on food frequency questionnaires? They can take the subgroup of people who actually said that they ate an apple a day. Now, I think that alone, anyone who eats an apple a day is probably already on a good path to health if they are already doing it. But in that research, once they kind of factored out other variables, the researchers found that the apple a day, like one every single day, didn't really make a difference. But I think the bigger conversation is, which rings true, is you should be eating fruit and vegetables in the whole form. Apple juice does not count in my book. It doesn't count because you're not getting the nutrients, the phytonutrients that's in the skin of that apple. What something we found that's actually in the skin of apples, researchers have found a phytonutrient that can help with blood sugar. In one particular study, this component of the apple that's found in the skin decreased the absorption of glucose by over 50%. We know that. So apples in general are good for you. They give you fiber, but they're also giving you nutrients that can help the body manage the blood sugar, to manage the carbohydrates that's coming in from the diet. So apples are good. If you can
Yeah.
get an apple every day, kudos to you. I would say that's a great goal to have, but don't get stuck on apples only. There are so many wonderful fruit out there. I would say focus on what is in season, and then that's what you should be eating.
Okay, and we're going to talk some more about food because that's a biggie in all of our lives. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have a great conversation like we talk about some more food. But I'm glad to know that there's actually something to that saying about the apples. I didn't know that, and so I'm glad you
Mm-hmm.
told me that. Now, I want to ask you another question. I have to bring up the fact that COVID-19 has been devastating in so many different ways across the board, and we all know that by now.
Right.
Um, I, I can honestly say I've never seen so much sickness and death in my life. I mean, it's almost like it's too much. Um, um, so the conversations about what we need to do to live are conversations that we have to have. So has COVID sort of guided your conversations even over on your podcast and life extension?
Well, that's a great segue because I want to just make a disclaimer that I am speaking. This is, Dr. Crystal. I'm not speaking on behalf of Life Extension or, the company or the podcast or anything like that, because the research is, as you all can see, the CDC can't even get the message straight sometimes. And so information is coming in so fast until it's really hard to kind of pinpoint exactly what an individual should do. So we really haven't like gone there, from the life extension perspective. But I can tell you this: there are known things that can keep you well and help you to make you more resilient, so that if you are exposed to COVID-19, or you are exposed to the coronavirus, that it won't be as severe. But there's so many, genetic factors. Of course, there's, the lifestyle, the illnesses that people have that just kind of has set them up to really potentially have a more severe form of the disease. So yes, we do know that keeping your immune system robust won't necessarily mean that you won't get sick. But if you take the person who they are, if you think about their health, they're sleeping well, they're eating lots of fresh greens and fruit and vegetables, they are getting physical activity, they are more equipped to handle a challenge versus someone who has not built up their defenses.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you specific questions about that. Now, I just want to, and I was thinking that questions may come in from the chat, and so I
Yes.
just want to just interject one of these questions right quick. And so, Minister Corey Fraser asked a question about the effects of dairy in the lives of African Americans in particular.
Yes. Well, the first thing we do know with African Americans, we tend to lack the enzyme to digest dairy. That's number one. That is something we know in the research, that more African American people suffer from lactose intolerance. So then you start thinking, what does that mean? Like, does that mean just in general for us? Does that mean that is something that we should not be consuming? And there are some schools of thoughts that say, yes, that is a clear indication that it's just not something. But some groups are a little more extreme. I tend to lean on the side that it depends on the person. There are some people who just cannot tolerate milk, and it has nothing to do with not having enzymes in order to digest it. It just tends to be pro-inflammatory for that person, meaning whenever they drink milk or they eat ice cream or they have any kind of dairy, they start getting like mucus production in the back of their throat. My husband, who's not African American, but that is something that he experiences. Like the moment he has milk, he can almost feel the inflammation happening in his body.
Oh, wow.
For other people, that's not the case. But if someone is trying to follow an anti-inflammatory diet, milk is one of the things that we cut out. Milk from, of course, dairy is one of the things that we cut out. And one of the reasons is milk is high in a type of fat, which is the omega-6 fat, which tend to just, once they're broken down in the body, they go down pathways to make pro-inflammatory compounds. So the people that I typically suggest limiting or avoiding dairy are the people who are dealing with chronic inflammatory conditions like arthritis, someone who is dealing with autoimmune health issues. Dairy is, if you can cut it out, that is definitely something that you should cut out, because we are trying to get inflammation down in the body. So I hope that answers your question. For someone that, if you're generally in good health and milk is not a problem for you, like, I'm not giving the message that, no one should have milk, but there are people who should. avoid it. If you do choose to have dairy, choose the grass-fed dairy, choose the organic dairy. We do know, and I could talk about this, so definitely slow me down if I'm, if I'm
No,
going
this is good.
far. We do know the cows get a big injection of hormones to make them produce the milk, to make them bigger. And so when you think about the, what's happening on the back end, some of that can get transferred into their byproduct, which is milk. So that's
Oh,
why
wow.
organic, if you can, it's a little bit more, but if you're going to have it, then look for ones where they even add more of the omega-3s into the milk, where it's kind of fortified with more omega-3 fats, and then that can help to balance some of the pro-inflammatory fats that you find in milk.
Great. Wow, that is awesome. You're teaching me so much already. And I never thought about if they inject the cow, then there's a chance that we're drinking whatever they were injected with. So that's interesting. I've always thought about that when I think about the fact that we eat chicken all the time. And we consider chicken, a healthy sort of meat. But then, you hear the stories of how a chicken is injected and chickens grow so fast. They're like, they go from the egg to adulthood in just a few
Right.
days. And I never think about that we are eating whatever they're being injected with. So I'm going to keep that in mind as we go forward. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about food while this thing is going by. And I want to talk about eating food versus taking supplements. And we'll talk about specific supplements later.
Mm-hmm.
But does it make a difference how we get our nutrition? What's the best approach? I mean, can I eat and stay healthy, or should I take a supplement? Or where's that balance with that?
Right. So I am food first. As a doctor of clinical nutrition, the nutritional supplements will not replace a healthy diet. They're called supplements because they are designed to supplement and fill in the gaps from what you may not be receiving from your diet. There's certain, like, for example, a multivitamin. A multivitamin is supplementing the poor soil quality and the fact that our fruit and vegetables today are not the same as they were 40, 50 years ago. When you look at the nutritional components, we are using and abusing the land. We're not giving it time to rest and all of that. And we are picking the fruit or the vegetable before they're even ripe. And you think about like the whole process of that fruit and that vegetable creating the phytonutrients. That happens the longer it kind of sits on that tree or on that bush. When it's developing, that's when it's creating those beneficial nutrients. So when you pick it early, so then you can ship it across the country, and then you expose it to like an artificial environment that will cause it to ripen really quickly. So now you can put it in the grocery store. It is not going to taste the same. It is not going to have the same nutritional profile. And so that's what's happening to our food supply. And, that's sort of the argument for the supplementation, but it doesn't mean that you're not getting, carbs, proteins, fats, that it's just pointless to eat those foods or to eat, fresh foods and eat a variety of foods. What we're saying is the supplementation is not going to replace it. But even if you have this perfect diet, which most people don't,
True.
most people don't. Most people eat kind of the same 17, 18 foods. And I noticed this for myself. I mean, I due to COVID, I get all of my groceries. I order them and then they get delivered. through one of those services. And I'm like, oh, I'm buying the same things every day. And, it's still, fresh. We get our blackberries, we get our raspberries, we get our blueberries, and it's the same thing. And occasionally it's like, okay, wait a minute. I need to add in some other, these are my go-tos, but you have to be reminded that you need to be eating a variety of foods. So then you can get a variety of the nutrients that those different foods provide. So that was the long way around saying supplementation is good, diet comes first.
Yeah, that is good. And this is such a revelation for me. I'm asking you about supplements, but they're called supplements because they're supposed to supplement our diet. That is so
Right.
great. Now, now another question came, and I'm going to just jump into that one because
Okay.
I think it's so relevant to this moment right here. This is Michael Wilkerson, and he said, "What is your take on the feasibility of financially challenged citizens being able to afford the healthier options?" And now, and I know that is always a variable that puts some of us at a disadvantage.
Yes.
What is your answer for that, for people who just say, it costs more to eat healthy?
Yes.
But what do we say to those who are financially challenged?
This comes up all the time, Michael, and I'm happy that you brought it up because there are food programs, and the thing is, they're not advertised, which is the problem. It's probably that there needs to be more public awareness, and but there are different programs where they actually double. Let's say that you have government assistance for food. There are programs where if you shop at a farmer's market, you get double the money. Like they actually kind of give you more bang for that money. Um, and it all depends on what you're buying. Yes, the organic fruit and vegetables, the markup is outrageous. And so I usually tell people a good rule of thumb, and if you can Google it, the Environmental Working Group, but they have what's called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And it's kind of like a shopping guide. The Dirty Dozen basically means that if you are limited when trying to purchase the organic, these are the dirty dozen that if you buy them you really should choose organic. The other ones, not so much. So everything doesn't have to be organic, and I think that's a really nice guide, because when you look at the Clean 15, there are lots of things on there where it just doesn't make sense to buy it organic. So I think sometimes just figuring out what is important, like spinach, you just have to, they spray spinach with so many pesticides. That is one where it's worth spending the extra dollar.
So
Um,
spinach would be considered a part of the,
Dirty dozen.
okay, that's part of the dirty dozen that you need to buy organic.
Right,
I
right.
follow
So
you.
that's
Okay.
just an example. Yeah. So
Right.
that's giving you an example. But I would have to say this though. If you put it all aside, if you are adding in organic or not organic, that doesn't mean you're not going to eat spinach, because spinach will naturally contain the phytochemicals that will help you to detox those pesticides out of your body. But it's
Mm.
just kind of it's just the body burden. What the goal is to try to decrease the overall burden of the pesticides on the body. So everything doesn't have to be organic. Shopping at farmers markets, that's a great way where you can get a lot of produce and food at a reasonable price. But Michael, you're right. There is a markup. on certain things. But it's actually, there's research on this, and there are studies that show that it's depending on what you're buying. If you're buying a lot of processed foods, if you're shopping the aisles and you're trying to get organic, it's probably going to be more expensive. But from the fruit and vegetable side, just in general, it actually ends up not being quite as expensive as people think that it is.
That's
So
great. And maybe people should give it a try. My wife has found a phenomenal farmer's market here in Savannah. And I
yes,
went out with her a couple of times, and I'm just blown away. It reminds me of back in the day when you walk and you see all the green vegetables and everything out there.
yes,
And the thing is, the farmer's market is packed. It's packed full of people. And so I just pray that we can hear what you said about the dirty dozen and the clean 15,
yes,
and my prayer is that God will bless people to be able to, who want to better their eating habits,
yes.
that he will bless them to be able to do that. And so many questions are coming in, so we're going to get to some of those, but I want to ask you another question, and my heart is for all people, but in the news in the last couple of years, we have heard so much about underlying conditions um, in the African American community, um, as being a part of the COVID
Mm-hmm,
outbreak, just being more severe
mm-hmm.
uh, among us. What can we do to reverse um, underlying conditions as it relates to nutrition?
Okay, so that's so when we talk about the underlying conditions, let's just point out that we're talking about diabetes. We are talking about high blood pressure. We are talking about being, overweight and obesity. These are things, these are underlying conditions that can make your COVID more severe. So, from a nutrition perspective, first start with diabetes, because and the ones that I hit, those are kind of those main ones that's prevalent in the community. Diabetes, I would say that the top nutritional thing to think about is fiber. And you're going to get fiber by eating whole food. Try to consume the food as close to the natural state as possible. And so that's where I mentioned earlier the apple, eating the apple versus drinking the apple juice, eating the orange versus having the orange juice, because now you're getting the fiber. I know juicing is in, and there's a place for that, but it doesn't replace, eating the vegetables that's going to give you the fiber. When you think about anything that's made from flour, so these are cakes, cookies, your sliced bread that you're buying. Um, these things, that flour in its natural state you have the grain on that grain, you have, the bran on that fiber. So whenever you're buying bread in the grocery store, that bread needs to be not whole wheat, whole grain bread, because now you are getting that full nutritional profile from that bread. And what's going to happen is whenever you eat that bread, the carbs from that bread will give you less of a glucose spike, a sugar spike after you consume that bread, because of the fiber. The fiber slows down the absorption of the sugar. And so that would be like my number one suggestion
Wait
is,
a
if
minute,
you can,
Dr. Crystal.
yes.
So all this time I've been thinking I deserved a badge for eating whole wheat, and you said that's not even. We need to go to whole grain instead.
Sorry,
I'm glad
sorry,
you told me,
Pastor.
because I'm thinking I'm just doing, rather than the white bread, I'm going to the, wheat bread, and then me, there's honey wheat and all these things, but really we need to go for the grains.
We need to go for the grains. And the way you'll know is, and when you start making these changes in the store, you just have to pick up those, you have two options, and look at the nutrition facts. One will probably give you 5-6 grams of fiber. The other will probably have 1 or not even have 1 gram of fiber. And that's the whole purpose of eating, of eating the grain, is to get the fiber and some of the phytonutrients in that fiber. So that's the number one thing. Switching out the white rice to brown rice, that will also increase the fiber, and all of that will help you to control your blood sugar. Blood pressure. From a nutritional perspective, and it all comes, I'm telling y'all, it's like a broken record. It all comes down to green leafy vegetables, and I'll tell you why. Whole grains and beans. They will contain magnesium. They will also contain, those foods will contain potassium. Those are two minerals that most Americans are deficient in, specifically magnesium. Research shows over 70% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. And magnesium is one of the main minerals to keep your blood pressure under control. And so a part of that is the fact that we're not consuming a lot of the vegetables and fruit and whole grains. And so that's the end result. So I would say, magnesium, potassium, look for those foods, those fresh foods. And then the last thing is overweight and obesity. Now, there are so many factors. It's hard to say from a food perspective what is going to be kind of that one or two, I guess, gems that I would leave to help someone kind of get on the path, because it's a journey and there are so many factors that play into what causes someone to be overweight or the inability to lose weight, from the psychological perspective to the cravings that can come, to thyroid issues, to there are underlying concerns as well as genetics that can play a role in someone being overweight or obese. But from a food perspective, if you start focusing in on real food, and I say this so often because our food is heavily processed and so far removed from the natural state. Even something like peanut butter. Peanut butter, you think, how can I go wrong with peanut butter? But if you look at like the list of ingredients in peanut butter and all the sugar and all the salt and everything that they put in the peanut butter, you may as well, grind your own peanut butter. That's a little extreme, but there are certain things where like it no longer even resembles what it looked like in nature. So
Right.
limiting the processed foods, the crackers, the cookies, the potato chips. If you want chips, maybe slice up some potatoes and get them real crispy in the oven and for about 450, or use your air fryer and try to find ways to try to make it yourself. And so those are, when you look at underlying conditions, that's one part. And then the other part I want to say is making sure you go to your doctor. Don't skip your appointments, because sometimes you can have these conditions and they are under control. They are managed properly, even if not through diet, through your medicine. But many people aren't even compliant to their medications, and that's a whole nother, conversation. But that is, that's what I would say when we start looking at those underlying conditions and COVID and what you can do is get them under control. Track your blood pressure regularly, especially if you're diagnosed with high blood pressure. You should be checking it throughout the day, at least 2 times a day. But, hopefully, 3 times a day if you can.
Now, speaking of 3 times a day, I was always told that you eat 3 good meals a day and you will be good to go. And I know times have changed and research has
Mhm.
come, but do we still need to eat 3 meals, 3 meals every day?
Well, there are different schools of thoughts on that.
Okay.
And the research is kind of mixed. There is the research on like the grazing behavior, where instead of these 3 big meals, like maybe 4, maybe 5 smaller meals,
Okay.
so that you don't overload the body. Because when you sit down and have this huge breakfast or this huge lunch or this huge dinner, that is too much for the body to kind of process at one time. So then that will lead to the spikes in blood sugar after you eat. And then after the spike in blood sugar, then you have the crash. So there's this idea where if you eat small, frequent meals, it can help to kind of keep your metabolism going throughout the day. You don't feel as sluggish throughout the day. It's kind of keeping you energized. And so maybe instead of the 3 huge meals, make them smaller. And
Okay.
and people have had really good outcomes with that.
Well, I was going to say, to be honest with you, I'm the one that would, if I'm running, I would be the one to skip out on breakfast. So the idea of 3 meals a day, I can't even say I do that all the time because, just being on the run. And that's what I want to ask you about. A lot of times, families are on the run. Everybody wakes up
Hmm.
in the morning. There's no time for a good breakfast. And so I want to ask you, because I've always heard that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But I mean, what if I don't have time for breakfast? I mean, what do we do in this
Yeah.
busy world in which we're living?
Well, then you find creative ways to get a little breakfast in. The breakfast doesn't have to be, and I think we have to program ourselves. It doesn't have to be this big event. Breakfast could be a handful of nuts and, if you eat dairy, a slice of cheese and you're out the door. So it can be something small. And there are some pretty good, you can make maybe some granola. That's a nice way to kind of get some energy in the beginning of the day. But there are the people who skip breakfast and they are fine. They're running on coffee, or they're running on, whatever they are running on. And then they have like a lunch, and then something in between lunch and dinner, and then a dinner. So I think it all depends um, on your lifestyle, but I'm not, and if you're following a specific plan, like some people skip breakfast on purpose, not just because they're too busy, because they are wanting to keep their body in that fasting state. And
Mm,
there is some research with that. But before I go there, there's a study that looked at 800 nurses, and they evaluated the nurses, the ones who ate breakfast or the ones who skipped breakfast. The nurses who habitually ate breakfast every morning, they had less stress on the job, less accidents at work, like less mistakes at work. So
mm.
there is something to it. I think it really all depends on what you're leaving out of the house to do, you know,
Right.
and if you're going to be able to have that mid-morning something to eat, around 11:30.
That's good. And now you mentioned intermittent fasting, and when you were saying that, Vanessa Clark wrote intermittent fasting as her choice, and I was going to bring that up because, and I was gonna say it, um, you know, trembling because you know there are a lot of church people on here, and when we mention fasting, people start thinking, "Oh Lord, don't let them call a fast. I don't have to do without any food." But you're saying that there is a school of thought um, that will adhere to intermittent fasting.
That is a big area of research. And I personally have followed intermittent fasting. And there are different ways to do it. You don't have to do it every single morning. But basically you need to keep the body in a fasting state. Usually there's like the 16-8. So you have an 8-hour window where you're eating, and then the rest you're fasting. So what that means, if your last meal is at 8 o'clock, and help me with my math, then you wake up the next morning, you skip breakfast, and then you don't eat you around 12. And so during that fasting time, what is happening in the body is, I mean, research is showing that it is like resetting the body. It is the cells are starting to clean out waste products. The cells become more efficient at burning energy because now you're giving it a chance. Like if you are constantly giving the cell proteins, fats, carbs, like you're constantly, the cell is having to take in all of that energy and process all of that energy. It doesn't have time to just kind of get rid of the waste, get rid and it's not very efficient. So what intermittent fasting does is kind of ramps up the body's efficiency. It jumpstarts the immune system. You find that some people feel that they think better, and they overall feel better when they try it. So saints, when it's fasting time, y'all need to get on board. Unless your doctor said no, we always have to give the disclaimer for the people. Like if you have to eat to take your medicine, then we understand. The Lord understands as well. We don't want you passing out. But if you can do it, and especially the longer fasts, like the ones where we're fasting and we eat after 6 p.m., there is research for that as well. There is research for all day fast, and in different areas of health, not just for weight loss. And that's what I think a lot of people think intermittent fasting, and they think this is how I'm going to lose weight. The majority of the research is more on boosting immunity, is more on helping to just kind of reset. There's some research with cancer, and intermittent fasting. And so it's kind of one of those things where it just kind of jumpstarts the body and puts it into more of like a defensive mode. And so that's where we are with the research. There's not as much long-term data. And when we say long-term data, just like years of people eating this way. But the short-term data is, I'm, thumbs up for it.
Okay, Dr. Crystal, I want to talk about water and drinking water. Not everybody likes to drink water because when we have something good to eat, we've been working all week long, and it's Friday night. We got us some crab legs or whatever we got. We want something good to drink with this good food. But I know we need to drink water. So, how much water do we really need to drink?
So, that's a big debate in the scientific community. Apparently, the latest research is saying all of these water requirements, there's nothing, eight glasses a day. I come from the school of thought that you should be consuming half of your body weight in ounces in water. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you should be consuming 50 ounces of water per day. And there's some research showing that is kind of a good way. The eight glasses a day is that one number, but it doesn't take into account someone who is smaller or bigger, and they may need more. Of course, doesn't take into account activity level as well. But it doesn't have to just be water. And so if you want something, especially like if you're having crab legs, I like a little spritz, something with some carbonation. So typically the go-to is going to be some like one of the seltzered or one of the carbonated flavored waters is what we keep around the house. There's, to me, that is the best alternative if you want the spritz. But I would say avoid the sodas. Just if you could do that, if any of you out there drinking soda, just pray that God delivers you from the soda, because the sugar is the one thing. The artificial colors is a whole nother, conversation of something that you probably should try to avoid. The occasional, and when I say give it up, let me just say, people, when people are so extreme in their changes, it usually doesn't last. So, trying to find healthier substitutes that can give you that spritz fix is a good option. And then you can treat yourself. If you're at a barbecue occasionally, go for it. But you have to know yourself as well, because if going for that soda is going to get you back on the bandwagon, if it's going to cause you to relapse on your soda, then don't do it. But it doesn't have to be just water. Those are good alternatives. You can flavor your water, and if you're eating fruit, that counts. It's about hydration, and so you can get a lot of hydration in fruit and vegetables as well.
Yeah, and also, let me see. One of our friends just gave us some good information right here. That was actually Lynette reminding us that sweet tea it's made of water as well. So I guess that's
No.
But Dr. Crystal, we're almost out of time. But I want to ask you about because flu season is upon us. We're in the
Yes.
fall right now, and I want to talk about some supplements that we can take, because several questions came up in the chat about vitamin D, about zinc, and other vitamins and supplements that we can take, not only to build our immune system for COVID, but just in the upcoming season. Would you give us a few supplements that you would recommend that we should have in our arsenal to stay healthy?
Yes, 100%. So one is start with a good multivitamin. Watch the gummies, because they have a lot of sugar. But if that's the only way you can get it in, then we would have to that's better than not having it at all. Vitamin D is critical. It's kind of like the master orchestrator for the immune system, and it tells those immune cells how to work. And why it's so important is that so many people are deficient in vitamin D. It is unbelievable. Even if you're taking vitamin D, you're probably not taking enough vitamin D. I would encourage your doctor, if you can, get a vitamin D test, and make sure your levels are between 50 and 80. 50 and 80. I can't remember the units. But that's kind of a good place for you to be, to make sure you are able to, to survive. I think you mentioned it. We're trying to stay alive.
Yes,
So
indeed.
vitamin D, but test it, because I know a lot of people are taking vitamin D now, and And you don't want to take too much. So make sure if you are taking vitamin D, after about 3 months of taking it, get a vitamin D test, ask your doctor for it. And so that's number one. Zinc is also very good. And these are things that you hear about in the media. So I'm just here to tell you, yes on zinc.
Mm-hmm.
Zinc is great for the immune system. Something that people don't talk about enough are probiotics. Probiotics we're kind of restoring the good, healthy bacteria in our gut, our environment, the foods that we eat, antibiotic use. They can destroy, antibiotics in particular, destroy the good and the bad. So consider a probiotic. The majority of our immune system is in the gut. So the health of our gut can orchestrate the entire immune response in the body. And so what did I say? Vitamin D, zinc, probiotics, multivitamin, of course, it is your foundation. And let me think of any other things, like elderberry is something that a lot of people talk about. That is something that can help, like the moment you feel like you're getting sick, that's, get that elderberry, and that can be helpful. Vitamin C. I didn't forget about vitamin C. Vitamins, it's the tried and true. There is nothing that I can't. I see here Cmos. I was going to comment on that because yes, Cmos can act as a probiotic. It's when we go back to like probiotics and gut health. Cmos is helpful for that. So yes, it can help with the immune system. Cmos is also a great source of iodine, which is helpful for the body as well. Let's see.
Someone asked about the idea of growing our own food, and someone asked about, Nancy asked about eating a salad a day. Is that
a salad a day instead of an apple a day?
Yeah.
I'm pro salads, but it's probably the salad. I want you to like visualize this. You may have to close your eyes. You want a salad where the greens, the lettuce is super green. You want colorful peppers, like the red peppers, maybe some bell peppers, some yellow peppers. You want some carrots in there. Like you want your salad to look like the rainbow. And I think that is a great way to kind of get a variety of nutrients all in one dish. But y'all, the salad dressing, that's the downfall. A lot of people think that they are eating healthy. I'm eating the salad. But after you put the dressing and load it with cheese and then load it with fried chicken on top.
Yes, a fried chicken finger salad. Come on here.
No.
Are you saying slow down? Slow down.
Slow down on the fried chicken on the salad. Go with the grilled chicken on your salad if you can. And so because some salads end up, the calories that you get from that salad sometimes is more. You do better off having the burger. So yes, I like a salad a day.
That sounds good. And someone asked the question about, and I'm glad you mentioned the Cmos. I've seen a lot about Cmos. I didn't know much about it, and I know there are people here. My mother grew some vegetables, and I know Minister Tynese grows her own vegetables. And so someone was asking about growing our own food. So let me just put these out there. It's right at 9:00, and I got to let you go. But I want to ask about, first of all, sleep and rest, because I've heard that stress attacks our immune system. So I want to talk about the importance of sleep and rest, and then I want to talk about we've talked about supplements, but anyone who has children or grandchildren, just wanted to ask you just an idea of what a person should do for their children in terms of supplementing their diet as well. So I just hit you with a lot of questions right here
Yes,
at
no,
the
no,
end.
no. I can handle it. So let's start with the children, and then we can go to sleep and rest and stress and and talk about all of that. So with kids, first, children, their diets are probably worse than ours. It's hard to get food into them, sometimes hard to get vegetables into them. One, I would say, don't stop introducing it, because your taste buds can be trained to like the food. So just because they say, I don't want the broccoli, they should see it on their plate, or they should see, don't customize it just so they aren't exposed. They need to be exposed to those foods, and
Oh,
you would be
continue to introduce
surprised.
it.
Yes.
Wow, that is good.
And then from a supplement perspective, yes, kids, a good kids multi. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you the lineup for my kids. I give them a multi. They have a vitamin D. They take fish oil for sure. There is a brand of fish oil, Barleans. They
Mhm.
have a really good liquid fish oil. It tastes like a yogurt smoothie. It is
Yeah.
delicious. The kids love it. So fish oil, I have them on a probiotic. And what else do I give them? I give them a special probiotic that helps their teeth. It helps to keep away cavities.
Mm.
And so those are obviously nutritional supplements. That's an area that I know well. So my kids are probably overloaded. Your kids, and they are exposed to it all day every day with us, so that may be a bit much. But yeah, I would say at least fish oil, at least vitamin D for them, and a good multivitamin if you're looking for something to just kind of keep the kids immune systems revved up. And if you start seeing that stuffy nose coming, then you can, give them a little more vitamin C. Don't overdo it, because then they may have diarrhea, because the vitamin C can sometimes cause loose stools in kids. So you don't want to give them too much of that. So now let's talk about stress, sleep. Stress is one of the number one things that will lower your immune system. And let's think about it. The stress response, your body produces cortisol. And if you think, what is the anti-inflammatory drug? Like anytime you have, let's say, a flare up, cortisone cream is what they're giving you. So it decreases inflammation, but it decreases your immune system. Anyone who's having an autoimmune disease, sometimes they treat them with cortisone or cortisol. And so yes, it can suppress your immune system. And then what it also does is the cortisol that is being produced, it suppresses melatonin. Melatonin is our sleep hormone. This is what controls our sleep wake cycle. And so the cortisol is now impacting our sleep. It is releasing sugar into the bloodstream. So now we are having our blood sugar increasing, is making your diabetes worse. So stress management is easier said than done. You can't not work. You can't, there's so many things that are kind of out of your control, but you have to take moments and, having faith in God, and knowing that He is in control. And when you are able to let go of things and let God handle it, then you will be surprised. You don't have to bear the weight of everything on your own. We are connected to the source, and that source has everything is going to work out for our good. And so we shouldn't be having sleepless nights worrying about things, because God's got it. And so, if we can like really embrace that, and again, I say it's easier said than done. But I would just say, you just have to pray and ask God to give you strength and help you. And what's this? Lay your burdens, leave your burdens at the altar, and lay it on the
Take them to
Lord.
the Lord and leave them
Burdens
there.
on the Lord and leave them there.
Yeah, yeah. And I wanted to mention now. I take from time to time a melatonin supplement. My wife just mentioned the fact that she does the chamomile tea, and so I wanted to ask your recommendation. And then there's another. Aunt Linda asked about perhaps how would you suggest a good way to improve a leaky gut? And
Yes.
we'll stop with those right
Okay.
there tonight.
All right. So melatonin is something that, again, it controls the sleep wake cycle. I would suggest you start off at about 2 to 3 milligrams of melatonin at night. But you have to set the environment too. So around 8, 9 o'clock, you gotta start dimming those lights and try to limit the stimulation. So yes, the cell phone. If you don't have the night make sure at least your phone. I don't know if you all could see my phone, but it's like a little bit has like an orange tint to it. Your phone, you can set it up where your phone automatically goes into night mode. Um, Turn off the TV. The blue light is stopping the melatonin production. So that's one thing.
Oh,
And
what are you? Wait a minute, because Minister Chinese wrote blue lights as well. So the blue lights from the TV
yes,
will affect the production of melatonin in my body.
it inhibits the melatonin production.
Oh my goodness.
So you have to, yes, I mean it's a whole thing. And so if you want the TV on, there are a couple of things you can do. There are the glasses that will filter out, and it's the blue light spectrum. So there are glasses that will filter out the blue light, especially if you have to work on stuff on the computer. Like my computer now has gone automatically into night mode. So it's filtering out that blue spectrum of light. But the TV, your phone, your computers, the light just coming, out of you have to kind of dim it and bring it down. And then in your room, in your bedroom, it needs to be completely dark. Blackout curtains. Don't have an alarm clock where the light is like from the alarm clock is shining in your eyes, because even that can have an effect, especially if you have trouble sleeping. Sometimes you just have to go all the way to the extreme so you can get a good night's sleep, because sleep is so important. And so yes, melatonin can help, magnesium can help to calm you down at night. I personally take my magnesium at night before bed. It is very calming. Chamomile tea, sleepy time tea, which will give you a combination of lots of those calming herbs like valerian and melatonin and ashwagandha that will help you to relax. Sometimes your day is just, we have the days and we have to be on fire all day long, and you get home and it's like you can't wind down.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to turn to the alcohol to wind you down. So stick with your nice herbal teas, and that will help you and block out that blue light, and that will help you, and get on a schedule if you can.
Okay, Dr. Crystal, I wanted you to just touch just for a minute because Aunt Linda asked you about
Oh yes.
some help with the leaky gut, and then we'll let you. Thank you so much, Dr. Crystal, because I've kept you overtime tonight, but these questions are
Look,
coming. This is
if
so
the
helpful.
questions,
Thank you
if they're
so
coming
much.
in, I am happy to answer it. So leaky gut, uh, Linda Moore, we may have to have a part two just on that. But if I would have to say the top, I would say the top two things. One is glutamine. Glutamine is an amino acid. You can find it as a powder. Usually doesn't taste that great, but it is very helpful with healing the intestinal lining. And then number two, I'm going to give you three things. I said two. Number two, probiotics. And then number three, you may want to consider cutting out gluten. Well, strongly consider cutting out gluten, because it can be pro-inflammatory. And if you know you have leaky gut, then gluten should just not be something that you should be consuming.
Wow. Dr. Crystal, thank you so much.
You are
This has been
very
so amazing.
welcome.
And I guess you can see the chat. So
Yes.
various ones are asking for a part two already, because this has been so, you have enlightened me in so many ways. You just blew me away about the rays from the TV at night. I mean, various things that you did. I didn't realize this. This was so helpful. And so I cannot thank you enough for your time, Dr. Crystal. And just one more time, I want the people to be reminded how they can follow you um, online and also your podcast. Tell us one more time before we go.
Yes. So the
Please.
podcast is liveforeverish.com. Live Forever-ish is, live is one word, forever-ish is the second word. And then Life Extension Live. So if you go to Life Extension's Facebook page, you probably will see a live that I did yesterday, cooking broccoli, a really good broccoli stir fry recipe. And it's actually, I learned something new from the chef that we were cooking with. But every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on Life Extension's Facebook page, I'm there either cooking or talking, or there's a guest.
That is so amazing. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go. I know you got your family, your children, your husband, but this hour has been so amazing and so informative. And so thank you, Dr. Crystal Gossard, for being here tonight and for what you have shared with us. You've given us a lot to think about. You've helped us. And I know that we're going to be healthy because of this. I'm not going to just, I've made my notes while you were talking. And we're going to put this stuff into action. So thank you again, Dr. Crystal, and all of you that are on here tonight with us in our audience. We thank you for being a part of this conversation. You are a part of this as well. I appreciate you all for your input. And if we overlooked a question, it was not intentional. I tried to make a note of every question that I saw, and we will talk to Dr. Crystal after this. And we'll see if we can schedule her again at some point for another conversation. But this has been so great. So listen, thank you so much. And we will check out your podcast and Life Extension on Wednesdays at 3. I'm going to check out what you're talking about, what you're cooking. I'm interested in that. And hey, here's to good health.
That's right.
Here's to blessings and health to all of us. So God bless all of you. Have a great night wherever you are. And I pray God says he will give his beloved sweet rest. And so I pray that you all will rest well tonight. And again, this is Dr. Crystal. Follow her. She has so much good information to help us. But this has been another conversation with Kenny. Thank you all so much. Have a great night. And we will see you again for another conversation. See you later. Bye.